Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Milan for EU4 1.31 Leviathan. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe since only 30% of you are subscribed, and you can become a member today. So Milan is a nation in the northern portion of Italy. We are also in the HRE, and we're one of the richest nations in 1444, well, relative to our size, and Milan is one of the best nations for playing tall with amazing national ideas, such as infantry combat ability, plus 10%, national manpower plus 20, we got idea discounts, tech discounts, dev discounts, all around an awesome idea set for playing tall, maybe even the best, along with Florence. As an Italian nation, of course, we can also ally both France and Austria, so we have that going for us, but they might want to PU us later when we get the Golden Ambrosian Republic disaster, which will enable us to get a unique government type as Milan, and we'll see what that's all about later. Of course, right now we are a regular monarchy, so let's take a look at what we need to do as Milan. First, we're going to go into our estates and summon the Diet. You can pick whichever agenda is best for you. Then we're going to give the clergy religious state, we're going to give the nobility primacy of the nobility and increased levies. Then we're going to activate the encourage development state edict in our capital state of Lombardy, and we're gonna dev our capital once in Diplo. Then we're gonna give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, and indebted it to the burghers. Then we're gonna sell titles and seize land. Now we're gonna take these 3 cavalry regiments and destroy them because they are pretty expensive. We're also gonna hire the Free Company and 2 more infantry regiments, and we're gonna hire a general as well. Next, it's time to get some advisors, get a morale, discipline, or fort defense guy for Mil, get an improved relations or Diplo rep guy for Diplo, and get whichever level 1 admin advisor you want. If you have a Diplo rep advisor, you will be able to Royal Marry Austria right at the start of the game. Otherwise, we're gonna have to improve with them. We're not gonna set any rivals just yet, since we do want to get alliances first, so we are gonna start improving relations or Royal Marrying Austria, and we're also gonna start improving relations with France. Now it's time to wait to get them. At this point, you can turn off forts and lower army maintenance to save a couple of ducats. And there we go, a few months have passed, and I can Royal Marry and ally France. And once we have one of France or Austria as an ally, we can start spying on some nations around us. You can try and find the weakest nation. In my case, it does seem to be Mantua, so I'm gonna spy on them. But it can be pretty much any one of your neighbors, ranging from Venice, Mantua, and Ferrara to Lucca, Genoa, and Savoy. At this point, you can ally another nation, and I do recommend one of the Pope or Switzerland. In my case, it's Switzerland. And there we go, some more time has passed, and I can also ally and Royal Marry Austria. Now that that's done, and we have our alliances set up, and it should be France, Austria, and one of the Pope in Switzerland, it is time for our first war. In my case, it is gonna be with Mantua, like I said, the weakest nation, and in your case, it could be any one of your neighbors, but it's most likely going to be with Mantua, Ferrara, or Lucca, depending on who's the weakest. And once we've allied France and Austria, we can also set some rivals, preferably the nations we are gonna be fighting the quickest, such as Mantua, Ferrara, and Savoy, for example. Why not? And I'm gonna be declaring on Mantua. In your case, the Ambrosian Republic might have fired even this early, and it does happen sometimes. Don't worry, I'm gonna explain later on, once it fires for me, what you need to do. After you've started your first war with one of your diplomats, you should spy on another nation, which is your neighbor, and with the other one, you should improve with France or Austria. At this point, you may have also been able to fulfill the mission, Friends in High Places, which gives us some prestige and improve relations for 20 years. And once you've finished up your first war, depending on who it's against, here's what you're gonna be doing. If it's Lucca or Mantua, you are gonna be full annexing them. If it's Ferrara, you are gonna be vassalizing them. If it's in any case Genoa, well, think about it, you might only be able to take one province from them or these 2 right here, depending on aggressive expansion. You're probably not going to be fighting Savoy and Venice right away. In my case, it's Mantua, so I will be full annexing them and taking all their money. Aggressive expansion is pretty high in Italy, of course, so we do need to chill. Once again, with one of our diplomats improving with Austria and France, and with the other one building spy networks on the nations around us. At this point, if you want to save a few ducats, you can fire your Diplo advisor. The Renaissance, of course, could spawn in your capital of Milan. It is a very nice bonus, and if you're not lazy, sure, you could save scum to get it to spawn in Milan. In my case, it did spawn in Venice. If you have high enough relations with Austria, meaning you're done improving with them, you should start currying favors with them, so they can help us out against Venice. Once you've taken the techs in the relevant fields, you can start deving up your capital of Milan a little bit. Encourage development should still be on at this point. Now in my case I did get an heir, and his legitimacy is growing, which might mean that the Ambrosian Republic disaster might not actually fire for me, so I'm gonna disinherit this guy right here so I can show you what to do when it does fire. Once AE has died down a little bit, it is time for our next war, which is going to be against the next weakest nation. In my case, it seems to be Ferrara right here. I am going to call in Switzerland, why not? Like I said, we will be vassalizing Ferrara since they are pretty big, and it will be too much aggressive expansion to fully annex them. Now, this may be irrelevant since you may be the Ambrosian Republic by this point, but if you still haven't gotten that disaster like me, for your tier 2 monarchy government reform, you should take strength and noble privileges. Of course, once you get the Renaissance, you should sell it to France or Austria depending on who's willing to offer more money. In my case, it is France. They're gonna get it anyway, why not get a few ducats out of it, right? And like I said, we will be vassalizing Ferrara, since it is quite a bit of aggressive expansion. And that's our first 2 wars done. It should look a little something like this in your case too. Maybe you fought Lucca and Mantua and you haven't fought Ferrara, maybe you've only fought Ferrara. It depends on who's the weakest. I'm still waiting on this Duke Filippo right here to go away so I can trigger this disaster and show you what to do. But it is actually better if it doesn't trigger right away since we will be growing stronger, and that will prevent Austria and France changing their attitude to domineering towards us and wanting to PU us, because if it does happen quite early, we are not that strong and they will want to PU us. The later it happens, the better, pretty much. I did once again get an error, which is unfortunate if you want to go Ambrosian, like this guide suggests, but hopefully we will get a Regency Council, which will enable the disaster to tick, so we'll see. Otherwise, I'm gonna disinherit this guy as well. Once you've devved up Milan enough and you have the Renaissance, you will be able to unlock this mission right here. Now you're gonna want to keep an eye out on when Venice gets into a war with the Ottomans, and of course it does happen since the Ottomans declare on Albania, Venice guarantees them and whatnot, you already know the drill. That is the exact point where we need to also declare our first war versus Venice. It might be earlier than 1459 for you, it might be later, but that is when we're gonna be declaring. And by this point you should be able to call in Austria, of course as long as they don't have the attitude towards enemies modifier. And we will be calling in Austria, we'll be taking back our cores of Bergamo and Brescia, but just before the war, remember to set at least these 2 provinces right here as provinces of interest as well. So if Austria occupies them, they transfer occupation to us. And we are going to be declaring a reconquest of Brescia and calling in Austria. If the Golden Ambrosian Republic disaster has fired for you, you won't be doing some of these things during this time, and you'll be focusing on the disaster. Either way, whenever it happens, you're gonna have a little gap of conquests, and you're gonna be chilling during those years. It might be earlier, it might be later, but it pretty much evens out for everyone, since it is a similar amount of time where you need to be chilling. It doesn't matter if you do it now or later. Of course, once 1460 comes around, the Shadow Kingdom event will fire, where Austria needs to pick whether to keep the Italian nations in the HRE or abandon them. Now, we are an Italian nation, and we will get the option to leave or stay. If you are allied to Austria, I do recommend staying. If you're not allied to Austria anymore, if they broke their alliance with you because you got the Ambrosian Republic or whatnot, you should leave. And there we go, this is the Shadow Kingdom event once 1 year has passed since it triggered. And like I said, since we are allied to Austria, we will select our country as a natural part of the empire, even though we do lose prestige. If we're not allied to Austria, you will select the empire doesn't concern us. And let's see which nations left. So it appears that us as Milan and Genoa have remained in my situation right here. But either way, this is a great event which helps us out because we do get less aggressive expansion when fighting some of these nations around us. And once you do beat down Venice sufficiently enough, and it doesn't matter at which point you're doing it, basically your first war with them, I recommend taking back your 2 cores of Bergamo and Brescia along with Verona and Padova. I'm also getting some war reps. And that's how your first war with Venice should look like. It doesn't matter if it's this early, but it should be around this time, since around this time the Ottomans declare on Albania. I'm still waiting on the Ambrosian Republic, by the way. Once you do beat Venice, you will be able to unlock the mission Reclaim the Ducal Lands, where we gain some permaclaims, prestige, and legitimacy. These are the provinces we got claims on. And there we go, my ruler finally died, and the Golden Ambrosian Republic has finally started ticking. I thought it was sort of late, but in my experience it does actually happen from 1455 to around 1465, so pretty much right on time. And don't worry if your nation doesn't look like this by the time it fires. You will have plenty of time to expand later on. But let's see what actually happens once it does fire. And here's the event which kickstarts the disaster, the Golden Ambrosian Republic. For St. Ambrose, we gain Republican tradition, lose 2 stab, our rival hates us, and they get a government form war on us. In my case, the only rival I have without a truce is Savoy, so that's why Savoy is the only nation that gets it. and of course you will pick a ruler. Now this disaster will stay active for 10 years, or at least until we get the Sforza event, and I'll explain that event once it comes up for me. But you do want to stab up. We will be getting events for stability, but we're not actually going to be taking the stability, and you'll see why pretty soon. When you get these events, if you want to go with the Ambrosian Republic government form, of course you will have an option to go with the military dictatorship when we get Sforza, or a presidential dictatorship if we get a Republican tradition low enough. Now, since I do want to keep the Ambrosian Republic government reform, I will be taking the option to gain Republican tradition and lose stability. If you want to go with the presidential dictatorship, which is a very common government reform, then you should go with the option that gives you stab. By the way, the Ambrosian Republic is a unique government reform just for Milan. It is very nice, I like it a lot, and it gives us plus 10% national tax, plus 5% morale of armies, minus 30 max absolutism, which is totally irrelevant for this part of the game, so it's like it doesn't even exist, and plus 50 governing cap. Pretty nice. Like I said, for this guide, we are going to be sticking with this, but I will show you the other options to get 2 more government reforms. And here's the event called the Milanese Succession, where France and Austria get a PUCB on us. At this point, they may break their alliance with you, and don't worry, it's something that's totally normal. In my case, Austria actually already did it because, well, they're allied to Genoa, which is my rival, and I'm allied to France, which is their rival. If I could still royal marry them, they probably wouldn't break their alliance with me, but it's fine. They still like me at least. Now, if you're about this big, they probably won't attempt to break their alliance with you. Basically, we've taken over 5 provinces and we have a subject. It is a pretty normal situation to be in, and at this point they may not even break their alliance with you at all. If, however, the Ambrosian Republic fired for you very early and you still had all your starting provinces and have taken maybe 1 province, they may break their alliance with you. Either way, now we're still waiting out this disaster and waiting out aggressive expansion as well. This time Republican tradition is at 67 for me, so I am going to take this other event where I gain stab. Of course, if Austria or France consider you weak enough, they might change their attitude towards you to domineering, which might mean they will want to enforce their PU on you. In my case, France still likes me, but Austria, they changed it. And this is the first Sforza event, where we get this General Francesco Sforza, a 3542, available for duty, and we gain some autonomy in a certain province, or we don't need him. Now, even if you do want to stick with the Ambrosian Republic, or if you want to go with a military dictatorship, either way, we are gonna take him. Nice, there he is, 3542. We're gonna use him to fight these rebels in my case, and I'm gonna show you what to do in the further events associated with him. And in my case, France have also just broken their alliance with me. The only nations I'm allied with now are Burgundy and Switzerland. Hopefully they won't try and enforce their PU on us. These feud events, just keep juggling between them. Right now, I'm gonna choose to lose stab. And even though I've lost France and Austria, very powerful allies that we will need, I have managed to ally Aragon and Poland instead of them. And because Austria broke their alliance with me, I will want to be leaving the HRE. Now, you might think I should stay for when I fight Genoa without fighting Austria, but they're actually allied, so I'm gonna have to fight Austria either way. And because we're not allies anymore, I will be leaving the HRE. Of course, once France and Austria lose the PUCB over you, you will be able to probably ally them again, depending on your goals, of course. Of course, while you're still in the Ambrosian Republic disaster, you probably don't want to declare any wars, and instead you just want to be chilling and focusing on the events that are associated with the disaster itself. And there we go, this is the final event that we are gonna get in the Ambrosian Republic disaster and the final Sforza event. Basically, this is where you choose how to proceed. All hail Duke Sforza. We change back to a monarchy, a regular duchy as we were right before the disaster fired. We lose a bunch of government reform progress, we gain stab, and basically the disaster ends. We end up as a monarchy. Or we could get another ruler, this Jacopo guy, get pretender rebels, our government will still be stabilized and the disaster will end, but we will remain a military dictatorship. So this first option, we go back to a monarchy. Second option, still a military dictatorship, just not with Sforza, because, well, we don't really like him. And the third option, the one I'm gonna be going with in this guide, is we go back to an Ambrosian Republic government reform. We gain another new ruler, a 361 in my case, and once again we get pretender rebels. So you don't want to go with this option. This is the boring option. Why would you be a monarchy as Milan. Pick this if you want to stay as a military dictatorship, if you think this is the best government reform. If you've done an Ambrosian Republic playthrough, go with this. If you've done this, go with an Ambrosian Republic. But for the purposes of this guide, I do think is the most fun and unique government reform, we will be going with the Ambrosian Republic and choosing this option down here. There we go, we're no longer a military dictatorship, we got a new ruler, and some pretenders have risen up that we need to fight. Now once we step back up to 1 and wipe out these rebels, the disaster will end. And there we go, a stable government in Milan, praise St. Ambrose. The disaster is over, and depending on what you picked, you're either back to a monarchy if you want to be vanilla, an Ambrosian Republic if you follow my recommendation, or a military dictatorship if you wanted to go with something that's flavorful but still not an Ambrosian Republic. Now once that's all done, it is time to continue our conquests, and for you, it might even be 1480, or it might even be 1455, depending on how early or late you got it. In my case, it's around 1470, pretty much the standard time in which you will be finishing up your disaster as well. Either way, now I can unlock this mission, Republican Yearnings, we get Reform Progress Growth and Stab Cost, and for your first age ability, you should of course select Justified Wars. Aggressive Expansion is still pretty high in my case, so I need to evaluate my options, but in your case, if it is low enough, you will be declaring on the next weakest nation around you. Of course, if you got the disaster earlier than me, after it you will be focusing on all the things I did before it. It's just a matter of when you get it. You still want to be doing the same things that aren't related to it. Right now, I'm waiting for Aggressive Expansion to die down a little bit before once again declaring on some of the weakest neighbors. In my case now, I will be declaring on Lucca. They are allied to Genoa, and in that same war, I'm gonna make Genoa end their alliance with Austria for an easier war later down the line. Of course, you should keep an eye out on things like this, but once again, I'm declaring on the weakest nation that I can find. It appears to be Lucca. I can't call in anyone, but it's not a problem. For your first idea group as Milan, I do recommend opening up with quantity ideas. I know it's the meta, quantity, eco, trade, the dev stuff, all that, but really, if there's any nation which these idea groups are specifically tailored to buff even more, it's definitely Milan. So quantity ideas for our first idea group. Of course, once we take it, we are gonna start focusing on Mill. And sure, we might be getting it a little late compared to some other nations, but don't worry, we had all those negative stab events, dealing with disasters, and taking expensive provinces to core, so it doesn't matter, it'll balance out pretty soon. And I will be full annexing Lucca. I did make Genoa end their alliance with Austria, and I also made Savoy end their alliance with Venice, which has backfired a little bit since they now allied France, but it's no big deal. I will be full annexing Lucca. And there we go, we've grown a little bit more. Of course, during all this time, when you have spare ducats, you should be building buildings, specifically starting off with marketplaces. In my case, I have built one in Milan, I've also built one in Mantua, and I will be building even more in Verona and Lucca now. You should be building them too, depending on which provinces have centers of trade and estuaries. After we've built marketplaces in all the relevant provinces, we'll be building some workshops. Now, I know the missions that we have give us claims on pretty much everything we've conquered, but the way the missions are sort of awkwardly placed, they don't sort of fit with our natural expanding opportunity. For example, we need to fight Genoa first, according to the mission tree, but I don't think that is in our best interest. That's why we were fighting weaker nations, such as Mantua, Ferrara, Lucca, and of course Venice, whenever they were fighting with the Ottomans. At this point, we do have a lot of forts. You can delete the most irrelevant ones, such as the one in Mantua, for example. Now, once you've conquered a little bit of the Venice trade node, it might be a good idea to move some of your merchants to collect there instead of transferring from Valencia or Ragusa. In my case, by transferring from those to Genoa, I'm making 3.41 ducats a month. So let's see. Let me try and move this guy from Valencia to collect in Venice and see if I'll be making more. So it's 341 right now. Let's wait for him to get there. And it is true, I am making 4.49 ducats right now. So just move around your merchants. When you find the optimal setup, keep them like that. Let's see if I'll make even more by moving this guy from Ragusa to Valencia. So right now it's 449, let's wait for him to get there. It's 431, so that isn't that beneficial to us, which means I will put him back in Ragusa instead of in Valencia. At this point, once you've ended your disaster and all the stabbing up we needed to do, you can give the clergy Clerical Advisory Council, the nobility Aristocratic Councilors, and the burghers Commercial Advisory Board. Now, if you've gone with the Ambrosian Republic like I have, for your Tier 2 government reform, you should select political dynasties for that +1 random candidate bonus or republicanism for +0.2 yearly republican tradition. They're both pretty good. I do recommend political dynasties slightly more than republicanism, but the choice is yours. Don't go with authoritarianism. Of course, once you have a few ducats saved up, you should start building some ships, light ships specifically. Now in my case, I'll be declaring on Venice once again. We do have permaclaims on them from one of our missions, and they do seem to be the weakest nation that I can attack. Once again, you know how to play in Italy, declare on the next weakest nation. I'm gonna be declaring for Treviso right here. For your second age ability, you should take Transfer Subject in order to maybe try and steal some vassals or personal union subjects, but if that doesn't seem very relevant to you, you could take Adaptive Combat Terrain or Improved War Tax. I'm gonna take Improved War Taxes. And now that I've beaten up Venice, I will be taking these two provinces from them. I would take more, but taking either one of their other provinces would incur a coalition. I'm also gonna humiliate them and take war reps along with some ducats. Of course, once you start building up ships, you should make those protect trade in Genoa and later Venice as well. Don't forget to call them home during war, because, well, almost every nation at this point around us will have a stronger fleet than us. I actually took this province by accident, so now I got a little coalition going, but nothing we can't handle. Only some Italian nations are mad. Oops. Either way, by around the 1480s, your game should look a little something like this. Basically, we started off as Milan and started conquering the weakest nations around us, which in your case might have been any out of Mantua, Ferrara, and Lucca. In my case, I've taken care of all three of those, and like I said, you should be vassalizing Ferrara and full annexing Mantua and Lucca. During that, we were waiting for the Ottomans to get into a war with Venice, where we could take advantage of that situation and declare on Venice ourselves. And like I said, in that first war with Venice, we are going to be taking back our two cores, which are right here, along with these two provinces right here. In my case, I have also fought a second war with Venice just now, and I've taken these provinces over here. In your case, you may have fought Genoa and already have Genoa. You may have pushed well into Tuscany and have some of these provinces right here. You may have already pushed Savoy out of Italy. Of course, it all depends on your alliance networks and which of the nations you are supposed to fight were the easiest to fight. Of course, at the start we could ally both France and Austria, but all that changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Just kidding. All of that changed when we got the Ambrosian Republic disaster, which you should have gone through by now. Like I said, it usually happens around 1455 to 1465, the time it takes for our starting ruler, the Visconti guy, to die. And I explained how to become an Ambrosian Republic and get through all the different events, the Sforza events, and I even explained how to become a military dictatorship. If that's your thing, go for it, but like I said, I do recommend becoming an Ambrosian Republic for all the flavor it brings when playing as Milan. It is a unique government reform for Milan, and I do think some other nations can get a military dictatorship, so it's semi-unique to Milan, the military dictatorship, but I still recommend the Ambrosian Republic. And by now we should look a little something like this. Of course, you shouldn't be in a coalition, and I shouldn't be in one either. Of course, I took this province by accident, so that's why I got a little one. But aggressive expansion with the bigger nations is non-existent. 24 with France, 36 with Austria. The HRE doesn't care. The only nations that do care are the Italian ones. And if you're somehow still allied to Austria, you may even still be in the HRE. Like I said, stay in the HRE if you're allied to Austria, leave it if you're not. But of course, once you get too big and you want to become a kingdom, you will want to leave it. Even if you stayed, I recommend staying only until you have, well, the northern portion of Italy, something like this, and then you can just leave. It's fine. By this point, we are making a very nice income. As we can see, I'm making 5.38 ducats a month. Of course, I do have army maintenance lowered, so let's raise it. I'm still making money, let's raise forts, and I still have income. Of course, I do have a little bit of interest due to some loans I took out for this Venice war, but nothing we can't handle. We are making huge amounts of money as Milan, and we will be making even more as we continue to build buildings. Like I said, I have built marketplaces in all the center of trade provinces, such as Milan, Mantua, Verona, Lucca. It seems that Ferrara, my subject, has also been building some in their provinces, which is pretty nice. I do have a couple of churches going as well. I do have some army buildings going, and now that I got Admin Tech 6, I will be ramping up construction on workshops in all the high value trade good provinces, such as the ones that produce cloth and paper. Those are the most valuable ones in Italy, and the iron ones here too, such as in Saluzzo, the glass one in Siena. We got very nice provinces, especially in the north of Italy, and they will be making a huge amount of money for us. Of course, I did also upgrade centers of trade. I got Mantua and Verona up to level 3. As soon as I state Lucca, I'll be bumping that up to level 2, and we will want to be upgrading all the relevant centers of trade. And like I said, move around your merchants until you get the best trade setup going. In my case, I had to move the guy from Valencia to collect in Venice to make even more money. And play around with that, right? There's no definite way to place your merchants to make the most money. Just move them around until you find what works for you. By this point, we should have built up the force limit. My force limit is 23. My army is consisting of 23 regiments, and I have just started ramping up production on boats. I have 4 light ships protecting Genoa, and of course I will be building even more. We are a little limited by the amount of sailors we have at this point. My force limit is 14 right now. By around 1500 it'll probably be like 20, so I will want to have 10 lights protecting Genoa and 10 lights protecting Venice. We will want to spam those light ships, and of course later, once we become Italy and get bigger, we will be ramping up construction of all types of ships, especially galleys and heavies for the Mediterranean right here, and light ships to protect trade in all the relevant trade nodes. Speaking of Italy, you of course will be forming Italy. Now Milan has very nice ideas for playing tall, and you don't have to form Italy right away if you don't want to, but they do have of course superior ideas to Milan, especially for conquest. To form Italy, we just need to take over some important provinces. In my case, I need Genoa, Florence, and Rome, and a couple of more provinces in the Italy region, as well as admin tech 10 to form Italy. But since I am doing a little tall-ish playthrough right here, I will be staying as Milan for a little longer rather than forming Italy as soon as I can. I may conquer all of Italy and still stay as Milan to dev up all those nice provinces and then form Italy, something like that. For tier 3 government reform, I recommend taking frequent elections. For tier 4, I recommend union of states if you're playing tall, basically conquering only Italy and something like that. But if you're planning on blobbing, I do recommend administrative divisions. For tier 5, you should of course take the presidential system. For tier 6, you should take devolution of powers or broaden executive powers, basically whatever you need during that point in the game, stab cost or a diplomat. I recommend a diplomat though. For tier 7, you should take either one depending on what your idea groups are. You'll get +1 possible policies in admin or diplo. For tier 8, I recommend citizenry. For tier 9, I recommend appointment by committee if you're playing tall, and bureaucratic apparatus if you're playing super wide. And for your tier 10 reform, I recommend taking strengthen executive powers if you plan on staying a republic the entire game, or you could take enforce republican values for -10% re-election cost and an admin free policy, or simply you could flip into a monarchy, which I do recommend once you reach the age of absolutism. For your next idea groups, I recommend taking economic ideas. After you've taken quantity, you already know by now, it's a no-brainer, the dev cost, all the relevant stuff. And if you're still a republic, I actually recommend taking plutocratic ideas for your third idea group. The mercenary stuff is great, morale of armies is awesome, the unrest, I love it. +1 merchant, come on dude, it's awesome. +10% goods produced, one of the best modifiers in the game. Caravan power, probably the weakest one in this idea group. Manpower recovery speed, awesome. And the institution spread is great too. If you've already become a monarchy by the time you take it, then you should take quality. But after you take plutocratic, I recommend trade. After that, I recommend quality, and after that, it's pretty much up to you. So quantity, economic, plutocratic, trade, quality, and then you can take something like admin, influence, diplo, whatever you want. And like I said, by around the 1480s, your game should look a little something like this. If you're not that confident in your abilities, or if you're not sure if your game is gonna go like mine, this save file is available to all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe, since only 30% of you are subscribed, and you can become a member today. And join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.